The old Ford Explorer coughed its last, dying breath of exhaust into the thin mountain air, the engine sputtering into an uneasy silence. Liam cut the ignition, the sudden quiet of the ancient forest pressing in around them like a physical weight. Ahead, barely visible through a curtain of rain-slicked pines, stood the cabin, a hunched, gray silhouette against an bruised, twilight sky. "Well," Liam said, attempting a cheerfulness that didn't quite reach his eyes, "we made it." Chloe shivered in the passenger seat, pulling her worn cardigan tighter. "It's bigger than the photos." Her voice was barely a whisper, thin against the drumming rain. "And darker." From the back, Marcus snorted, ever the pragmatist, or perhaps, the contrarian. "It's a cabin, Chloe. They're usually made of wood and get dark when the sun goes down." He peered through the rain-streaked window, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Looks suitably rustic, though. Maybe we'll find a cursed doll or a serial killer's journal." Sarah, quiet as ever, merely watched, her gaze fixed on the cabin as if trying to decipher a complex code. Her eyes, usually sparkling with an inner light, were shadowed and still. They unloaded their bags under the intensifying rain, the cabin's imposing structure growing with every step closer. It was an old place, built of dark, rough-hewn logs, its windows like vacant eyes staring out from under heavy brows of warped wood. A thick, almost suffocating scent of damp earth and decaying leaves hung in the air, mingled with something else, something metallic and faintly sweet, like old blood. Inside, the air was cold and stagnant, thick with the smell of dust and forgotten things. Liam found the fuse box and, after a moment of fumbling, coaxed a few dim bulbs to flicker to life. The yellow light did little to dispel the gloom, merely pushing the shadows back into the corners, making them seem deeper, more menacing. "Okay, everyone pick a room," Liam announced, trying to inject some normalcy into the unsettling atmosphere. "No fighting over who gets the master suite." Chloe chose a small room on the ground floor, furthest from the main living area. "I just want to be somewhere, contained," she mumbled, her eyes darting around the peeling wallpaper. Marcus took the upstairs room with the widest window, already pulling out his portable speaker. Sarah gravitated towards a room beside Chloe's, her movements slow and deliberate. The first night was a symphony of old house noises. The wind howled through the gaps in the timber walls, making the old floorboards groan and creak. Rain lashed against the windows like handfuls of pebbles. Each sound, innocuous in isolation, wove itself into a tapestry of unease. Chloe was the first to wake, jolted upright by a sound she couldn't quite place. It wasn't the wind, nor the rain. It was a rhythmic, scratching whisper, like dry leaves skittering across wood, but it seemed to come from inside the walls. She held her breath, heart pounding, listening. The sound stopped. But then, a faint thud echoed from the floor above, followed by a choked, half-sob. She crept out of her room, her bare feet silent on the cold floorboards. The main living area was bathed in the pale glow of a dying moon through the grimy windows. The shadows danced with an unnatural life. "Liam," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Marcus." Silence. Then, from the upstairs, she heard it again. A low, guttural murmur, too deep for any of them. It was not words, not exactly, but sounds that twisted and coiled, slithering into her ears, filling her with a cold dread. She froze, unable to move, unable to breathe. A floorboard creaked behind her. She spun around, her eyes wide, but saw nothing. Only the heavy, shifting darkness. Suddenly, a light flickered on upstairs, casting long, grotesque shadows down the stairwell. Marcus's voice, rough with sleep and annoyance, cut through the quiet. "What the hell is going on? Did someone turn off my music?" Chloe let out a shaky breath, the terror ebbing slightly, replaced by a profound relief. I heard something, she stammered, clutching her chest. Upstairs. A sound. Marcus descended, rubbing sleep from his eyes, his expression a mixture of irritation and grogginess. Probably just the house settling, Chloe. Or a stray cat. Go back to sleep. He didn't seem to notice the fear still etched on her face, the way her hands trembled. He went back to bed, muttering about noise complaints. Liam, hearing the commotion, stuck his head out, offered a brief, reassuring word, then retreated. Sarah remained silent in her room. Chloe, however, couldn't shake the chilling conviction that she had not imagined the guttural murmur. The next morning dawned gray and sullen. The rain had subsided, but a thick, oppressive fog had rolled in, swallowing the cabin whole. The towering pines were reduced to spectral silhouettes. They tried their phones. No signal. Liam, pragmatic as ever, decided to check the car. Engine won't even turn over, he announced, returning an hour later, his face grim. Something's drained the battery, or worse. We're stuck. Marcus finally looked up from his book. Great. Just what we needed. Rustic charm and mechanical failure. Chloe, meanwhile, was drawn to an old, built-in bookshelf in the living room. Dust motes danced in the sparse light that filtered through the fog. Her fingers brushed against the spine of a leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and brittle. It was a diary, filled with sprawling, frantic handwriting that grew more erratic with each entry. She began to read aloud, her voice trembling. October 14th, the hum is back. It's inside the walls now. It watches. It changes things. I hear whispers, not human. It wants me to see. She paused, swallowing hard. October 17th, my reflection isn't mine. It smiles. It knows. It wants to replace me. Chloe looked up, her face pale. This is horrifying. Marcus scoffed, though a flicker of unease crossed his face. Old cabin, old ghost story. Probably a prop from the previous owners. Don't tell me you believe that nonsense. It's not nonsense, Sarah said quietly, her voice surprisingly firm, drawing all eyes to her. She had been staring out the window, her back to them. Now she turned, and her eyes were wide, distant. Last night, I saw something. Liam tried to keep his voice calm. Saw what, Sarah? A shadow, she said, her gaze unfocused. Moving between the trees. It wasn't an animal. It was, too tall. Too thin. And it felt like, it was waiting. A sudden, sharp crack echoed from the kitchen. They all jumped, their nerves frayed. Liam grabbed the rusty poker from beside the fireplace, his knuckles white. He moved cautiously into the kitchen. Nothing. A stack of old magazines had simply fallen from a shelf. Relax, Liam said, trying to reassure himself as much as them. It's just an old house. But his gaze kept flicking to the darkened corners, to the windows that looked out into the impenetrable fog. As the day wore on, the cabin itself seemed to grow more restless. A low, persistent hum started, vibrating subtly through the floorboards. Doors that had been left ajar were found closed. The air grew colder in certain spots, despite the roaring fire Liam had built. Chloe swore she saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway, a brief, distorted glimpse that vanished when she blinked. Marcus, increasingly agitated, kept trying to fix the car, returning each time with a new curse and a growing frustration. Even his sarcasm was losing its bite. That evening, as darkness fell again, a new terror began. The whispers returned, louder now, no longer confined to the walls. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, indistinct at first, then coalescing into a cacophony of overlapping voices, speaking in a language they couldn't understand, yet conveying a profound sense of malevolence. Chloe huddled on the couch, her hands clamped over her ears, tears streaming down her face. "Make it stop," she shrieked. "Please, just make it stop." Liam paced, a hunted look in his eyes. He tried to rationalize, to find a source, the wind, the chimney, a faulty wire, but the sounds defied any logical explanation. They were too numerous, too close, too wrong. Marcus, who had retreated to his room to escape the noise, suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. They rushed upstairs, Liam in the lead, poker in hand. Marcus was backed into a corner, his eyes wide with a terror that dwarfed anything Chloe had felt. His face was ghostly pale, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. "The window," he gasped, pointing a trembling finger. It was looking in. Not just a shadow. A face. No eyes. Just, black holes. And it smiled, Liam. It smiled. As he spoke, a chilling, childlike giggle echoed from directly beneath the floorboards. Then another. And another. The cabin was alive with them, mocking, gleeful. The dim lights flickered wildly, casting chaotic shadows that seemed to stretch and contort into impossible shapes. Sarah, who had been standing silent and watchful at the edge of the group, suddenly dropped to her knees, her body convulsing. She began to chant, a low, rhythmic drone in a language none of them recognized. Her eyes, rolled back into her head, showed only whites. Foam gathered at the corners of her mouth. Liam rushed to her, shaking her, calling her name, but she was gone, lost to whatever vision held her captive. As he tried to hold her, her body became unnaturally cold, her skin clammy. He recoiled. The whispers intensified, swirling around them, forming discernible words now, though still in that alien tongue. But their intent was clear: fear, surrender, belong. A sickening crack echoed from Sarah's chest. Her body went rigid, then sagged. Her eyes, now open and dark, stared blankly at the ceiling. The chanting stopped. A deep, wet thud followed. Terror, primal and all-consuming, seized them. Marcus, his mind clearly broken, let out a whimpering cry and bolted, tearing down the stairs, desperate to escape. They heard the frantic scramble for the front door, the wrench of the lock, then the slamming of the door, swallowed by the oppressive silence that followed. Liam and Chloe stood frozen, listening. There was no sound of Marcus running through the fog, no cry of fear, no desperate pleading. Just the silence. It was worse than the whispers, worse than the screams. It was the sound of absence, of consumption. Then, from the darkness outside, a slow, dragging sound began. It moved away from the cabin, a soft, sickening scrape, growing fainter until it, too, was gone. "He's gone," Chloe whispered, her voice hollow, devoid of emotion. Liam just stared at Sarah's unmoving form, then at the empty doorway Marcus had vanished through. His mind struggled to comprehend. This wasn't a house settling. This wasn't a stray cat. This was something ancient, malevolent, and insatiable. It fed on fear, it twisted minds, and it took. Suddenly, the hum began again, louder this time, vibrating through the very bones of the cabin, through their own bones. It was a frequency that clawed at their sanity, making their teeth ache and their vision blur. The air grew heavy, suffocating. The shadows in the corners writhed, coalescing into forms that shifted and dissolved, glimpsed only in the periphery. A deep, resonating chuckle echoed from the walls, seeming to come from every direction at once. It wasn't human laughter. It was something vast, something pleased. Chloe looked at Liam, her eyes wide and unblinking, reflecting the flickering lights, reflecting the dancing shadows. A slow, chilling smile spread across her face, not her own smile, but a stretched, grotesque parody. Her head tilted to an unnatural angle, and her lips parted, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too numerous. "It's beautiful, isn't it, Liam?" The voice that came from Chloe's mouth was not hers. It was deeper, older, laced with a predatory glee. To belong. Liam stumbled backwards, away from the horrifying transformation, away from the thing that wore Chloe's skin. He was alone. Trapped. Surrounded by the hungry silence and the pleased, ancient thing that now waited in the cabin, waiting for him to break, to scream, to finally, truly belong. The hum grew louder, a triumphant song in the heart of the inescapable, consuming darkness.